views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not represent or reflect the official policy or position of the Take a Paycheck Foundation and podcast. All information shared is from personal experiences and does not constitute medical advice. We do not take responsibility for any statements expressed during the podcast. Take a Paycheck does not endorse any products or services. Any said products or services mentioned on this podcast may not be suitable for you or your condition. Please consult with your physician if you have medical questions, as it may pertain to your condition.
Hi everyone, welcome back to this week's episode on Take a Paycheck. I'm so excited to have Aisha joining me today. Hi Aisha, can you give me a brief introduction about yourself? Tell me a little bit about your education, your hobbies, your career, and what you've been up to recently.
Hi, I'm Aisha, as you said. I'm 24 and I graduated last year from the University of Waterloo with a degree in accounting and financial management. And I ended up accepting a returning offer from my internship at one of the big four companies, which is where I kind of work right now, even though currently I'm on long-term disability leave. Because I'm on long-term disability leave, I do have a lot of time, but I don't really have a lot of time for the hobbies. It's focused on getting better, but I've started to get back into reading a little bit, which is something I'm enjoying. But I was writing before, and I have a poetry book out on Amazon if you want to check it out, which actually made it to the top 5 page when it came out. So that's pretty much what I do. And in the future, I really, really hope that I can get my CPA, get back to work, and start writing again.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Poetry, okay, cool. I don't think poetry is something that I can ever write. So I know in school I was definitely struggling to analyze poetry. So, but that's so amazing. Yeah, I'll definitely link that down below for anyone who may be interested in checking that out. But you're on this podcast because you are diagnosed with chronic illnesses, specifically rheumatic disease. Tell me a little bit about what your conditions are.
Okay, so the current diagnoses I do have are SLE, fibromyalgia, and idiopathic hypereosinophilia at the moment, but it's ever changing.
Wow, that's a lot. And when were you diagnosed with these conditions?
So this happened in June 2023. Before that, there was a whole lead up that it might be Sjogren's or whatever for the past 3 months, but they ended up with lupus.
It's so recent.
It's been maybe a little over 6 months.
And that's so interesting because you've lived life without lupus. And for me, I lived life without juvenile idiopathic arthritis. And so, especially you've lived that life longer without it. So, how is it kind of now getting this diagnosis or these diagnoses and now living your life differently? What was that kind of reaction when the doctor was like, you have lupus?
I think it was I want to say it was a shock because having that word there was, but there was so much pain and so much wrong that I think because the diagnosis came after I was hospitalized, more on that later, but I already knew that something was up with me, that I was not okay. And I'd known since at least the past year that this was more than what I was just pushing through because I was able to push through it before and I'm not anymore. So when this diagnosis was given to me, I was like, that kind of makes sense. But oh my God, I now have a diagnosis next to me, which I never did.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of an adjustment. Yeah, like now I click on disabled when it sign fill out forms or whatever, which is something I wouldn't before. So yeah, it's interesting. It's new. I think I'm still getting used to it, and I'm not really there yet where I can say I am, but we'll get there hopefully.
Yeah. Is there any family history of chronic illnesses or rheumatic diseases?
My mom has a chronic kidney disease, but nothing systemic. No, not that we know of.
Okay, interesting. So I'm wondering, how did you and maybe even your family kind of realize that you need to go see a doctor? What was that journey like getting to the doctor?
Right. So because I'd been sick, like my legs and my back have been hurting pretty much. So I was really young. That had been a conversation for a while, but the doctors kept saying it's just you're just deficient in iron and vitamin D. But when I got COVID the second time, I started coughing so much that I would be throwing up. At that point, they started giving me steroid inhalers and I calmed down, but I started getting all these lymph nodes all over my neck, pretty much everywhere. And that is when my mom was like, hey, this is a bit problematic. But at the moment, they were like, oh, lymph nodes are like a sign of a bacterial infection. You're just recovering from COVID. Even though one of my white blood cells, eosinophil, was very high, which it's a rare cell to be high, but they were like, it's fine. You have a bacterial infection. You're recovering from a virus as well. It's okay. But in February, I still had those lymph nodes and they were big. So I asked for the ultrasound and they said, come back a month later and then we'll do it. But if they're still there. At this point, my mom storms in and she's like, you give her the ultrasound right now. My daughter's not well. Because I'd also had 3 different episodes of fevers in November and 2 in December during my wedding and final exams, ranging from 101 degrees to 103.5 degrees. So my mom was just like, you're getting her the ultrasound. And in the ultrasound, there were like some suspicious lymph nodes, kind of. And they were like, okay, this is problematic or whatever. We'll send you to all these places. And they referred me to hematology because this is when they called me hypereosinophilic. Essentially, I was hypereosinophilic. It had been over 6 months. My eosinophil was high. That's what it means. And this is where it becomes dangerous, starts to attack organs. But right before I saw all these specialists, I'd only seen the lung doctor, which sent like autoimmune testing done for me, and it had come back positive. And maybe my rheumatologist once or twice, because the second time I saw her is when my eosinophil went so high. She said she's scared there's a tumor. She's scared that there is eosinophilic infiltration on my spine, that I have hypereosinophilic syndrome. And she wrote out this note and sent me to the ER on Easter weekend. And that is basically how I ended up in the ER. And that is where it all began. Before that, she was still hoping that I had fibromyalgia, even though I had multiple positive autoimmune disease testing. Like I had a positive rheumatoid factor, which is usually what people with rheumatoid arthritis have. I had a positive Sjogren's syndrome antibody, which is also seen in lupus. And I had a positive ANA titer, which basically just means you have lupus. And then all these symptoms and fevers and like coughs or whatever. So she was still hoping that it might be just fibromyalgia, but after that, it was like a whole process. And then that's where it began, where I was constantly being seen by multiple specialists and doctors. Like, I haven't seen a hospital in over a month since April 6th, 2023. So,
Wow. So what are some of the specialists that you see? And also, I'm just wondering how your symptoms have changed over time.
yeah. So, I'll answer the first question first. So, the specialists at a CR, I see a hematologist, I see a neurologist, I see a neuropsychiatrist, I see an ENT, but I haven't seen them in a bit. I just sometimes don't pick up the calls because like that's too many people. I see a lupus doctor, rheumatologist. I see a pulmonologist, and I hope that's it. There might be another, but I'm thinking that is it for now. I see, sorry, hematologist slash oncologist because they just last week ruled out that I for sure don't have cancer. But yeah, that's all everyone I see. And that's basically connected to your second question, the symptoms question. My symptoms have changed in that the lymph nodes have reduced a little bit, and they've done a bunch of cancer testing. So they can say for sure that I don't have cancer. So that's a good sign. And I'm on a bunch of medication, so the symptoms have just been all over the place. Um, it's just been like pretty much the same, though if you look at it on a curve, there might be ups and downs, but it ends up on the same spot kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so is it joint pain and fevers you mentioned? So is it joint pain or like do you have rashes? How does that work?
Yeah, so I get like a rash across my face, like a red rash, and it's like burning with the UV light, with the sun or whatever. I have really bad leg and back pain, but that's been there this entire time. But my joint pain was something that was going down with the steroids, which is one of the medications that I'm on, but it started to like come back as the steroids are being tapered down. So that's there. My cough's better because steroids are really good for your cough. So I'm not taking inhalers at the moment. And my hair is falling again. That's happening. So it's just like a bunch of symptoms that are like all over the place kind of thing, like night sweats, which is like a symptom of lymphoma, but I'm having really bad night sweats, which I had before the steroids. So it's just like it's messy.
Yeah, I think also with the addition of having multiple diagnoses, I think you come to that point where sometimes you can't even depict like which condition gives me that symptom. I luckily only have arthritis, like JIA, but I have talked to so many people that have multiple conditions, and sometimes even their medications, it's like hard to keep up, or how many doctors they see. It's just frustrating. I'm out here being like frustrated about the different types of medications I have to take, but I can't even imagine what it's like for other people who have to take like maybe 10 times more of what I need to take.
You're going through is completely valid, and what you're taking is valid too. Like, come on, it's hard. It's hard no matter how many medicines you have. It's hard if you have to take even one medicine.
I
It's
know
hard.
it definitely is. And so I'm wondering what has been the most difficult part of your diagnosis journey?
So definitely the consistent testing and not knowing, and like the I have a lot of medicines and medications, and just organizing that. So I don't do it. I get my husband to do it now. But I think definitely that, and then just constantly having to go and get tested, and then being tested for different things and not knowing whether I have cancer or not, and then being tested again. And every time I go to the doctor, which is like every 2 months, I get tested at the lupus doctor, and then I also get tested at the hematologist who I've seen. The new one I've seen once. So yeah, that's probably the roughest part. It's hectic. Like I have to depend on people to take me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And we talked a little bit, we've been kind of mentioning medication, but what are some medications that you've been on, or how do you organize your medications?
Yeah, so currently I'm taking steroids, immunosuppressants. I also took a light chemo drug called Imuran, but that tanked my liver as a side effect. So we had to stop that. I'm not on that anymore. And as a replacement of that, I'm on Cellcept, which is also like an immunosuppressant. Basically, it just suppresses your immune system, which is active for me as I have lupus. I'm on neuropathic medication. I'm on hydromorphone, which is a narcotic, and I'm on it every 4 hours for pain. Um, I I think that's it. I said steroids. I'm pretty much. I think that's it. It's about 7 medicines in total. So, and my husband has. We have like a pill box, and we kind
Like
of like sort.
organize it?
Yeah, because I take multiple pills of each one. So, and then I have my iron pills that I just started as well. So it's like just a whole like a night segment and a day segment. So
Yeah. No, I went on Amazon because I thought that I was very unorganized in terms of my medication. So I went to buy the pill organizer like
yeah,
box, but I ended up not using it because I gave up because I just thought it was so much work to like put it in. But then I don't know. I still have it though in case I decide to change my mind. But at that point, I was like, I've seen so many people use it and may be helpful, but I think it's just like you need to figure out what works for you. And I think that you have kind of figured that out over time.
I kind of had to. Like I did not use it until like I had to, because then it was a lot of boxes. I couldn't take them places because now when I go out, I need to take medicines with my food when I go out for dinner with my family or with my friends. So I need it in like a smaller, kind of tinier thing that I can put in my bag. So yeah, it is what it is.
And so you were diagnosed in 2023, and that was kind of when you graduated university, but you were having symptoms while you were in university. So, what was that like for you managing school and kind of the health appointments that you had to go to, as well as the symptoms?
So essentially, I graduated in December 2022. My program's a little different in the sense that you graduate in December and then you start your master's immediately after in January. And then you graduate from that in August and write your final CPA exam, which is Certified Public Accountancy exam, basically. And that's essentially what you do. And then you start your work. That's what I had. And I had an offer to start in September. So this was my final year and I knew I needed the grades. I already had this master's offer, but I was so sick that I had a note from my doctor saying she's coughing so much she's throwing up. And one time on the way back from class, I almost passed out on the bus, like coughing. And like because I was trying to get there and I was in so much pain. So we wrote out an email and then my professors were accommodating at first and they let me join the lectures through my friend's Zoom their Zoom accounts. So I could take notes and I would be there essentially because these were in-person classes. But towards the end, during my final exams, I got like a 103.5 degree fever again. And I went to my professors and I was like, look at me, like I'm not okay. I can't write this. Like, what are my options? Can I write this like in a week? I was also getting married like in a week, but I was like, it's fine, I'll write it, I'll write the exam. Like, is it possible for me to like do anything else, some extra credit work? And they were like, no, you either graduate next year or you write the exam. And I couldn't do that. I had a job and a master's offer to keep. So I went and wrote those exams and I did okay, but obviously it was a bit of a there was a bit of a situation there, but that was really tough on me because like my lupus also started causing a lot of brain fog. So I was studying and memorizing things and not being able to retain that information, not being able to like relay it, not being able to write it out, even though I was able to do this before. I've always been a straight A student kind of thing until like maybe the last 1 or 2 years when I felt like my symptoms were getting worse. And after COVID, it just got really bad. But yeah, that's pretty much what it was like with these symptoms, like just kind of navigating through them, I think.
Did you end up getting any sort of accommodations during that time though?
Yeah, like just the Zoom lectures that I talked about pretty much. And I think one of my professors, the one I'll talk about this a bit more, but one of my professors, I think he also kind of maybe dropped an assignment for me and shifted the weight to the final. Um, but that was pretty much it. What I really needed were accommodations during the final exams because I did not expect to get that fever. I was very, very sick. Like I went and wrote those exams with that sickness. Like I was not well at all, but I had to graduate. So
You seem like you're very passionate about the degree that you were in and you were very interested in your career and like what you wanted to do. So just like dealing with those health challenges while you have to navigate your school and then potentially your career life after is definitely hard to like make those decisions. So when you did lose the master's offer, like how did you deal with that?
yeah, I will say I'm not necessarily an accounting fan, but I love my mom and my dad, and they wanted me to do this. So
Okay.
as I'm passionate about this, my goal in life was to essentially give back because we moved here in 2016 and my parents pretty much gave up everything to come here. So I just wanted to give back. That was my motivation behind it. But yeah, the master's offer, I ended up losing it because the final exam that I wrote in my fever, it basically brought me to a, a 56 in the course, which is graduating, but not a 60, which is what I needed. So like a day before the grades were released, but the day of my wedding, I get the email that I don't have a master's offer and they cannot tell me why, by the way. They can't tell me if it's because I haven't graduated my undergrad or because I didn't meet the 60 requirement. And this is my wedding morning. So when I got the news, I was absolutely like, I was like, what are you saying? Like, did I not graduate? I started like crazy emailing a bunch of people. I was like, it's my wedding morning. Can you just tell me if I graduated or not? And there was a winter storm happening outside, just the worst. And they were like, we can't because grades come out tomorrow. So I just called my husband and I was like, yo, I know we're getting married tonight, but I need you here or there won't be a bride. So he just showed up and he called me down. It's fine, it's okay, we'll figure it out, we'll figure it out tomorrow when your grades are there, we'll message everyone. And essentially he calmed me down and I had my wedding and obviously I didn't get the offer back, but also it's fine. I don't think I would have been able to be in it anyway, based on how sick I got literally right after. So
This kind of goes to like the saying of things happen for a reason. You're gonna still go back into eventually taking that exam and like doing other things too. So you need to take care of your health.
it is annoying. Like I did go back to work actually. I went back to work after my hospitalization because I was like, I want to work.
Yeah.
Um, and I wasn't allowed to like I wasn't like my doctor sent in a note and they were like, no, like this is not you can't do this right now. So I was like, nice, thanks for doing that. um, I've been on short-term disability since from June to December, and then since then I've been on long-term.
And how does that work? Can you talk a little bit about that for people who may not know how that works?
So basically, I just applied through my firm. It's like a process. You just have to sign a bunch of forms. You have to sign the forms. Then your medical practitioner has to sign some forms. They verify all this information. They verify it every month. They verify it actually, sorry, every month later on, but every 2 weeks at first. And then you get like for the first 6 months, you get 90, then 80, then 85, then 70, then 60% of your income. And then after that, 60% of your income.
You've been kind of talking a little bit about your wedding here and there. So before we jump into talking about that, I wanted to talk about how did you meet your partner and like how did you tell them about your condition? What was the timeline of like where they were in your life when this all happened?
Yeah, so I met my partner before all of this, before like I had a diagnosis at all, but I did have like leg pains or whatever. We before we get into that, he actually just slid into my DMs and was like, "Stop calling yourself ugly," because I do that a lot. And he knew how to get me. I like Taylor Swift, by the way. What do you think about like a certain? It was just like a certain message, and I was like, maybe I'll reply to that. So I replied to it, and that's how we met. And the second day, I basically just felt really bad leg pains, which is something that was normal for me, but it was not normal for me to feel it in the mornings or afternoons. This was 2020. Yeah, this was 2020, November, December. So I mentioned this to him, and I'm like, I have really bad leg pains. They keep happening. It's just iron and vitamin D stuff. Don't worry about it. But like, can we just sit in the car or whatever for a bit? Like, I'm really tired. And he was like, that's not normal. And I'm like, no, no, it's normal. My doctor says it's normal. He's like, yeah, let's talk to your doctor. And we did. And they did all the tests, but you know, autoimmune disease testing can show normal blood work for a while. So it just showed like anemia and stuff, like iron deficient anemia. But that was pretty much it. And then, finally all of this happened. And he's just been my biggest supporter, like my rock. Like he hasn't complained once. He wheelchairs me to all the places. Like I know that he married an independent, hardworking woman with a full-time job who was not on a wheelchair. And what he has right now is someone different. But I don't, I've never felt that way once. In fact, I feel more important than I did before. And I think that says a lot about the kind of person he is because usually, especially men tend to like just give up on women when they get sick. And the kind of man he is, like, I'm just really grateful, because he's supporting me, he's taking care of me, and he doesn't do it because it's an obligation. He does it because he loves me. Like it's just yeah, that's his place in all of this is he is my place in all of this.
A lot of people living with disabilities, they find it really hard to already get into relationships because they like, have the disability and then they're looking to find a partner, but they can't because they're afraid that like, what are they gonna think about me? And all of that. But it's just interesting that he was like with you prior to all of this and then stuck with you, which is amazing because I think a big fear that a lot of us have is that, like, will they leave when they find all of this out about me? Which in
Yeah,
your
and
case,
this
so that's just amazing.
Yeah, no, because this happened right after we got married. We got married December 2022, and this started like my first ultrasound for my lymph nodes was February 23, like first week. So it's just been like I don't think we got to, and we went on our mini honeymoon, but we didn't really. Our bigger honeymoon was supposed to be Europe over the summer. Obviously, we didn't go, but that's pretty much like where we were, and it was just he never really complained. And even before when he found out I had like an actual disease, he was like, I know, I always knew, I knew the doctors are wrong. Why do you think I kept pushing them? Why do you think I kept being like, we need to call them, we need to tell them they need to do more? But there was nothing. I was getting my blood work done every 6 months, every 3 months, even sometimes, and there was just nothing there.
It sounds as though he seems like one of your biggest advocates. I'm wondering what your family's reaction was when they realized that you have these conditions. Like, how have they supported you?
I think they were surprised because I would be like, I like do this for me, do that for me, and I'd be like, I'm in pain, like, or something like, oh, I'd say I'm lazy. I didn't know what else to say because and they'd be like, oh, come on, we're lazy too. Like, we can't always do work for you, your sisters. And then when I'm like, ha, I was sick the whole, they're like, oh crap, like, oh no, like she was actually sick. My parents are really struggling with it because they had a healthy daughter and now they don't. They're just it's been hard for them to come to terms with it, but they've been my biggest support in terms of the fact that one of the drugs that I take, steroids, it makes me really, 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 really angry. Like a very bad person. Like I don't know who I am on this drug. And they let me kind of take it out on them most of the time. So I'm really grateful for that. Because your parents, like it's usually my parents and my husband that I usually can take it out on, and I know like they will never feel bad. And my mother-in-law actually, like when I'm having like those crazy breakdowns, it's usually those four people that I know will probably like they might be able to take it kind of thing.
Okay, so you have that support system. And how did you tell your friends that you had lupus?
They found out when I was in the hospital. I actually ended up losing all my friendships. They weren't really willing to keep up with the effort, and also like when I was injected with 200 mg steroids to go to the Eras tour. Basically, I had like a really obviously I was emotional, so I didn't really want to fight with anyone if they were being mean to me. So I would just like remove them. I would not talk to them. That's basically also what my doctor said. She brought my parents in. She was like, she is going to be really not herself, and it's not her. Just know that. Like we're giving her a very high dose. And so they didn't really. I don't think they wanted to put up with that or care that I removed them. They never followed up or anything of the sort. So yeah, they did follow up after all my hospital appointments and everything was done. And after I'd gone through all of it alone, and at that point, I was just kind of over it, and I didn't really want them in my life anymore. So
No, that makes total sense. So you were sort of in pain during this whole time. How did you navigate like planning for a wedding, having a wedding happen, and just dealing with all this pain?
I think when it comes to brown weddings, it's usually the mom planning everything down to the song. Like I had to beg my
Yeah.
own mother to whatever. Um, but it was my wedding. So she was doing most of it. But I do remember I had an asthma attack at my own tolki, which is
Oh,
like a little event we throw before the wedding. So tolki slash mehndi. Like everyone was dancing and I couldn't. And I couldn't stand for long periods of time. My husband had to really have his solid grip on me. And when I was walking in down the aisle with my parents, I had to have a solid grip on them because I did wear heels. Because I didn't know I had something. But for the first time, I was struggling and I wasn't sure kind of why I was getting tired. I was exhausted before the night was over, and this was the day I'd been looking forward to my whole life. So, yeah, that was basically how it was. And in terms of the planning, I didn't really plan anything.
that's
That's why I
great.
didn't bridal shower. I didn't get any events as much. I got told keys from other people, but like I didn't really get to plan any events because I was so sick, and also because I didn't have like the time. I was also writing my final exams.
Because you come from a South Asian background, do you think that there's any stigma towards like chronic illness or any comments that you've received or culturally, like what is that like when everyone kind of knows that like you have these chronic illnesses?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I'm grateful that I haven't received this kind of criticism from like my family, but online it's been insane. People have said things like, poor guy stuck behind a wheelchair, and things like, why don't you do housework? And I'm like, I can't get out of bed most days without narcotics. So online people have been really weird about it, and they're usually like brown people saying things like, go help your mother-in-law or your husband deserves better. It's just this kind of idea that if you're disabled, you're not worth anything to a man, which is just the weirdest thing. But yeah, but I'm grateful I haven't felt that way at all from like the family that I chose and the family that I had. So
No, that's amazing, but that sucks. Why are people saying things like that? They shouldn't be.
they're so mean. That's not even like the worst. It's just they're horrible online.
And how do you block that out?
Don't.
I
My
know it's
husband told me
hard. It's hard because you see it on the screen.
it's I really don't. I think it does sit in my head, and I need to be reassured, and still I don't believe it. But it is what it is. Hopefully, we'll be at a point where I can let the good win over the bad. You know what I mean? Like the comments, and not feel that way. It is all very new. So
You briefly also mentioned the Eras tour. So when was that and like when did you go and was it still when you were in pain or sick or dealing with a chronic illness and or I guess where was this concert in terms of your timeline? Like, where was it placed? Were you in pain? Did you have lupus at this time? How did that work?
So I booked the tickets when I didn't have a diagnosis, but I was in pain. But I booked floor seats because they have seats, so it was like I could sit down if I needed to. Um, but the concert was in June 2023, and by that time I was in a wheelchair. And it was a day before my birthday, so we had to go. I did make a video online being like, does anybody want my tickets? But then my husband was like, let's just try and go. We'll try, and worst case, we'll get accessibility seating when we get there. So we drive 4 hours down to Detroit, and I get ready, and we get there. He wheelchairs me there, and they're like, yeah, we can't take the wheelchair to the floor. And I start crying my eyes out because, those were the seats that I wanted. And I wasn't disabled when I got them. And I hate that I'm in a wheelchair and I'm just crying. And where he's like, okay, let me figure something out. We're trying to he's probably going to figure out accessibility seating or whatever. But this worker sees me crying and she comes up to me. She's like, come with us, come with me. And she takes us with her. And we go down this elevator and we go backstage and we come out from behind the stage onto the floor, like literally where Taylor Swift comes out and leaves from. And we come out onto the floor and she's like, okay, you're going to see her from the floor tonight. Okay. Have a great day. And I'm like, were
Wow.
you like, did you just like, huh? Like, but that's basically what happened. And I wasn't able to stand, which frustrated me and I cried a lot because I'm the kind of person who would not sit at a Taylor Swift concert ever. I've been to a Taylor Swift concert. I did not sit. I don't even think I said after that, but so it, it was a bit weird for me to be sitting during the best moments of Bridges, but it was still the best experience of my life. And my husband, hands down, like he's the only reason it could happen. And then for my birthday the next day, he took me to a bakery and everything too. And we were singing like the songs while he was like wheelchairing me out of the concert, which ended around like closer to midnight. So it was my birthday.
That's amazing. No, I mean, I'm glad that someone found you and was able to still like get you to a seat that was close by. I know it sucks knowing that you've kind of attended concerts and done things a certain way before, and now you have to adapt your lifestyle and change the way you do certain things, which is very difficult. But I think over time, you realize that it's like your new reality, and that's what you have to kind of figure out. I mean, that's what I've realized too, is that we need to figure out how to kind of like adapt to this new reality and accept that like this is our life now and it's hard to go back.
Honestly, that's just how it is. I'm trying to accept that. They keep telling me like, okay, you're not gonna be in a wheelchair forever. Like we're working on it because my main issue is pain. And when I take my narcotics, I can walk to a certain extent. Like I can, if I take it like properly, like I don't because I'm not in my mind, but if I take it every 4 hours like I'm supposed to, I can walk. So I'm really hoping that I do get there. But if I don't, then this is the new reality, and that is okay. Like and if it takes time to accept it, that is okay too, for me or anyone else. Like we need to allow ourselves the process of the process of grieving the life that we had. It should be okay to grieve it before you get to the point where you can accept the newer one, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I've been diagnosed with arthritis for 7 years, but I still am like, oh, I wish I could do this or I wish I could do that. I don't think that that's ever going to go away. I think it'll always be there, but I've definitely learned new skills and ways of doing things that I did not know before. So I think in that sense, I think we're more mature too. I find a lot of people on my podcasts also say that they feel like they have grown up way quicker than anyone else has. I don't know if you've felt that way over the past half a year.
No, definitely both me and my husband, we feel like, because honestly, I feel like he's going through this too with me, but we both feel like we've definitely gotten a lot older in this 1 year.
I wanted to talk about your initiatives and your interests and some cool stuff about you. And I think one of the main things that we saw on your guest application form was that your popular post on Tumblr about tuition was seen by Taylor Swift. Can you talk a little bit about what that felt like, what the post was, more information? I feel like me just saying that sentence, I'm making it sound like it was nothing, but it was definitely something. So please elaborate.
Yeah, so in 2019 we had like all these OSAP cuts, and I just went to Tumblr and I was like, guys, I'm really struggling because my other option was dropping out. I was 5,000 short. And my friends had made posts like that before, and when I was working, I'd help them. So I was thinking, oh, maybe everyone could like pitch it even a little bit, maybe. And So I made the post, and Taylor Swift follows me on Tumblr. She has since 2015, I think. And but you don't think like she sees so many things. She follows a lot of people on Tumblr, and it was very hard. It was not very likely for her to see her post. So I made the post, and then my friends liked it, and I thought, okay, they're gonna hopefully help me out because I've done the same for them. The next day, I'm like baking cookies, and I get an email, and it's like, oh, someone sent you money. I'm like, oh, yay! Like, nice. One of my friends actually came through. And I'm like, I'll check it in like a few minutes. And once the cookies are done baking, I grab one and I'm putting it in my mouth. And I opened the email and it's 6,000 something. And it says, I love you, get your Aisha, I love you, get your learn on Taylor. I'm like, literally, my hands are shaking right now because of the lupus, but my hands were shaking then because I couldn't believe it. Like, I dropped the cookie and I screamed so loud. And when I scream like that, my family knows it's only Taylor because I've done that maybe twice before. Once when the was coming out, and the second time when I got the message that I'm meeting her. But so I screamed really loud, and they knew. My sister ran down, Taylor, what did she do? I'm like, oh, she gave me money, and she was like, what? What are you like? What? And I'm like, she gave me money. She's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. And then I show her the email, and she's like, oh. And we're not processing this. Like, nobody's processing this. And then she goes, Aisha. I'm like, and then my other sister comes down and I show her, and we realize, and then we start screaming. And it actually hits us. And we make a video saying thank you or whatever. And I posted, and I'm like, keyboard smashing. I'm like, what? Is this real? But that's essentially how that happened. And that was just the craziest thing, like, for her to do that for me, because it allowed me to stay in school. And I had to graduate, of course, to make her proud. So
I don't think anyone that would have gotten that would be freaking out. So I definitely see how hard it was to process that too. Like, is this real? Well, that's so amazing to see that she actually sees people's posts and actually cares about people.
Really great. I don't understand why people are so mean about her. I don't care. I love her.
I mean, yeah, she paid for your tuition. Like, why wouldn't you?
We're so mad at me on TikTok for liking her. They're like always like complaining about it. And I'm like, okay, complain. Like, I don't really care. She's amazing. I think she's really down to earth and one of the best like celebrities out there because she is that down to earth.
So have you met her before?
Yeah, I've met her. She reached out, her team reached out, and they were like, this was before the tuition, and they were like, she wants to meet you, but you're only allowed like one guest, and we know we have two sisters, so you can bring them backstage after the show, even though the opportunity was before the show. But she really wants to meet you, so we'll adjust. And they adjusted, and I met her, and this woman, after a 2 hour show, sorry, 2.5 hour show, was in heels on her knees talking to me and my sisters, and she knew who I was. She knew everything about me. She knew like she just knew things that you can only know if you've been like really following someone kind of thing. It's just crazy. And she does that with a lot of people. Like she used to back in the day. Now, of course, COVID changed everything. It's a lot harder to do that anyway. But she's still like that caring, but does meet people less. But yeah, she's just amazing and very incredible. And in real life, just as nice as she seems. Like, it's not an act.
I think that also goes to show that because you did post something on a form of social media, you were able to get what you needed. And I think social media does get a point across, whether that be for raising awareness about certain things or telling your story or what you need. It's like brings a really strong message to people who may be afraid to like post about something. Because as for you, like when you did post, something actually positive came out of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And talking about posting, you're also a consistent TikTok creator. And that's sort of how I was telling you before this episode, but that's how I came across your page and reached out to you. I was scrolling on TikTok, and this was on my personal TikTok account, and your like makeup tutorial came up, and then I was listening to it, and then I saw like lupus, and then I was like, she needs to come on the podcast because I think it's so important to raise awareness about lupus, but also shine a light on what you're doing in terms of content creating. And so I'm wondering, when did you start on TikTok, and what was your inspiration?
So I didn't start content creating per se until the end of 2022, which is decided I liked doing my makeup on there and telling stories. But I did have TikTok before. It was more, I just created it in 2019 because I wanted to do the Why You So Obsessed with Me dance and have my cousins think I'm cool. That was my inspiration behind the account. And slowly I would just post funny stuff and gain followers, but I stopped posting completely in 2021 and most of 2022. And then towards the end, I started doing Get Ready With Me's, and that's essentially like what I do now. I just like doing my makeup. It is a bit tougher because my hands shake a lot, but I'm willing to keep trying until I can.
So, have you found any accessible makeup products or like, tools or anything to help you, or are you just kind of going with whatever?
Whatever. I don't think there are products that are catered to people with rheumatic diseases, are
Have
there?
you, Rare Beauty is like designed for people with disabilities.
Is that actually real?
Yeah. No, it's real.
But I didn't know that.
So I didn't know that either until I read about it. The caps are circular. So she designed some of the products in a way that it's like easier to grip on and open. You'll find other products like being really hard to turn, but hers is like what if you grip on it, you can like open it quicker. I think Rare Beauty is one that is supposed to be catered to people that may have more like mobility issues, whereas I don't know any other brands, but Rare Beauty definitely is one. I've seen a lot of people talk about that.
It's actually really interesting. I didn't know that. I might have to like stock up on some things and figure out if that's actually true. I did have their blush, and yeah, it is really easy to open, and it does have like that
I know, I
circular.
didn't realize that. Like, I didn't think that hard when I was opening it. But then everyone's like, why is the packaging? Everyone was saying, why is the packaging like that? But it's actually supposed to be accessible makeup.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah,
That's
check
good.
yeah, check it out.
Okay,
Not me like advertising. Selena Gomez, why don't you sponsor this podcast episode and give us some free PR? Listen, yeah.
yeah, hi. Hey, I want to.
What do you talk about? Because when people do Get Ready With Me's, they usually talk about something at the same time, whether that be school or like life. Is there certain things that you talk about with your Get Ready With Me videos?
Yeah, at first it was all that. And then this happened, and then I'm like, my life is literally just getting out of bed and taking forever to do that and go to the bathroom right now. But that's not all my life is. I read, I watch TV. Me and my husband hang out every day. We have fun conversations. I go upstairs and hang out with my in-laws. I call my mom, I hang out with my mom. When I can go upstairs, right now my husband is picking me up, but there's a time when I can sort of, my joint pain is better and I can go. So I hang out with people. It's not like this is all I'm reduced to. So I talk about that. And then I just talk about this too because it's okay. This is my life too. And that's just how it is. I really like that you mentioned that you saw me on your main TikTok because that is what it should be. Like I want to break into the mainstream um beauty area industry kind of thing with this, you know? I want to break the barriers and break into the field for brown girls, not just brown girls with, you know, chronic illnesses.
I usually don't get arthritis content on my main page. It's mainly like makeup or like celebrities or South Asian brown girl stuff, that sort of thing. So when I came across it, like I usually watch people's Get Ready With Me's because it's kind of interesting. And then I started listening more and you were talking about lupus and I was like, oh my gosh, same rheumatic disease. So I was like, I need to reach out to you just because I think it's so important to also like support and share stories of other people that are going through similar experiences as you, and also because I think your message is like so important and people should know about your account and your platform. So for anyone that's listening, I'll definitely link all of that down below so they can check it out. But I wanted to end off the podcast episode with an advice segment. So what would you say to young people struggling to come to terms with their diagnosis?
Um, Honestly, it's what I said about myself. You need to let yourself grieve. It's okay. If you are not allowing yourself to grieve, you will not accept it. So have that cry, have that big, oh my God, what is this? How is my life going to look like? Even if that big cry lasts for 6 months, and then your acceptance period will start. Because this is what it is. It is what it will be. You will slowly begin to accept it. Your body will begin to accept it. Your mind will begin to accept it. So it's okay. Depend on the people around you. They love you so much. They want you to do better. And find your support system. And you'll be okay.
Thank you so much, Aisha, for joining me on today's podcast episode. We started off by talking about your diagnosis journey, the medications that you've been on, and then you discussed your undergrad experience. We talked a little bit about your wedding. We talked about some hospital visits, some difficult situations that you've been in as well. And then we talked about attending Taylor Swift Eras tours in a wheelchair, and also the whole Taylor Swift paying your tuition. Last but not least, we also discussed your TikTok platform and how that community has been super important for you. So everyone, like, comment, subscribe. I will link Aisha's social media channels down below, and I'll see everyone in 2 weeks on Take a Pain Check. Thank you so much, Aisha.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Bye, guys.
I can't hide, 'cause growing pains are keeping me